Добрый вечер, коллеги.
Good evening, distinguished colleagues. I'm happy to welcome all of you. Thank you for having joined our roundtable. And I'll be happy to welcome the ones who will join us later. And I'll tell it in advance. Our roundtable is dedicated to an extraordinary issue, with which we are dealing with within the Higher School of Economics. And with that is why we launched the project aimed at exploring creativity in various organizations. When it comes to modern business, creativity is one of pivotal factors of competitiveness of any organization. And that is why we pay special attention to creativity in business. But our business is not fully aware of managing creativity, of incentivizing creativity within an organization. How can we maintain people's motivation who are eager to manifest creativity? Also, we witness many organizations in the world, and their activity rests on creativity. And we call them creative organizations in English. But first and foremost, I mean museums and theaters. These organizations are creative. And that is why we decided to act in an extraordinary way. Traditionally, business is related to cultural institutions, such as theaters and museums. And we are patrons of these organizations because we fund them, we allocate funds for these organizations. We try to learn, to teach the managers of museums and theaters. We let them master management. That is why they become economically viable, and they do not depend on philanthropists any longer. And also we believe that creative organizations have a lot of issues to share with business. And they may also teach business because they are examples of pure creativity. That is why we decided to explore the ways of managing creativity in museums and theaters. And this will enable us to make conclusions and to devise techniques, methods, practices, which may be beneficial for the business, for cultivating creativity, for nurturing creativity. That is why we are eager to effectuate transfer of these managerial technologies from creative organizations to business. And this challenge is truly interesting in the theatrical environment and in the domain of contemporary museums, be it artistic museums or natural science museums. We witness modifications because this social function of museums and theaters is ever changing. And when these changes occur, this creativity is inevitable, it is in demand. And I believe that, and it's our reason for learning for more and for exploring creativity. And our roundtable is aimed at creativity in museology. And I hope that famous experts of international importance will share their experience in museology regarding the ways of manifesting creativity in museology. And that is why we will be able to record these insights and these observations, and we will include them in the pool of our findings, for the sake of which we have arranged this process. And we have launched this process. And I also welcome my colleagues via Zoom. They are my colleagues who work with me, collaborate with me. I see Vladimir Opredzelonov. He's sitting next to me. He's the director of Pushkin Museum for digitalization. I also welcome Sergei Yagolkovsky. He is associate of the professor of High School of Economics, and he's an expert in psychology of creativity. I also welcome Valeria Ustinova. She's our leader in the theatrical area of exploring creativity. Valeria has an educational background of a film director, of an actress. She has been working for the Etc. Theater for more than 20 years, and it is headed by Alexander Kalagin, and it is one of the leading Russian theaters. I also welcome Irina Smirnova, who is the representative of Panasonic company. She's also actively involved in all the creative activities of the museum domain. And I also welcome Olga Zelenova. She's the deputy head of the Department of Organizational Behavior and Resource Management of Higher School of Economics. There are 6 of us, and we form the laboratory, the research laboratory for creativity management, the Higher School of Economics. There are 6 of us, and we'll be the most active listeners at this round table because your words are very interesting for us. We're interested in your opinions. Now I would like to finalize my word of introduction, and now I am eager to introduce the participants of our roundtable as soon as they join us, and then they'll make presentations. And since we welcome Tomislav, Dr. Tomislav Shola, who is the creation scientist, the professor in museology at the Department of Museology and Heritage Management at the University of Zagreb. I would like first to give the floor to you so that you could tell us about the ways of manifesting creativity in museology nowadays. Tomislav, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Just tell me what's the time limit. Be kind.
Знаете, я так полагаю, что
15 minutes will be all right, but
how many? How many?
15 minutes.
15. What it is? I understood 15 or what? Okay. Let me joke. In fact, you cannot joke with professors, you see, because when they start to speak, they need 45 minutes usually. No, I will not misuse your time. I haven't prepared anything in the sense of ready lecture, because it did say clearly it was a round table. I did like the theme though. And as I said already, I like your country, so it was easy to persuade me. On the other hand, I'm not anymore at the university. I'm very much with the conference, The Best in Heritage, with some other projects, and very much retired. So I can speak my mind freely. I hope some of you heard me before or read something, because I must admit I'm a heretic and rather disregarded probably by my colleagues as an anarchist, probably. I don't know, because I don't like institutions, I don't like politicians, I don't like huge companies, I don't like the present paradigm of westernization of the world as it is right now. I simply don't like it. It's not because I will be leaving soon, it's just because I don't like it. And I have my reasons. Risking to avoid many themes, I will cut into the meta immediately. Now we have creative companies, creative cities, creative tourism, creative everything. You know what it suggests to me? That there's a crisis of creativity. I know that other suggestion is also that we need it desperately, like never before. But it's not really a better argument. the good argument, in my opinion, is that there's a crisis of creativity, probably because there is a dictatorship of mediocrity, and probably because there is a sort of imposed kitsch culture concept. Anything goes. Anything goes, you would probably recognize as postmodern slogan, but it has deteriorated in the meantime, and it has become nothing matters. I feel like living in a worse world than it was when I was trying to teach at the faculty at the university. And I'm ashamed to say that we elderly leave a world behind us which is worse than the one that we have inherited. It's a shame. And who are we to be blamed? I think the lack of democracy, the lack of rights to secular spirituality in our museums, for instance, in our cultural institutions, the autonomy of peace, the ideology of peace, not pretension like it is now on the planet. And I would like to see that identity is cherished by so-called left, or I would say engaged citizens, not so much by the rightist or the new right, or the alt-right as they are saying usually. Identity is a matter of freedom. And let me be very clear. I think the main problem with creativity, the main obstacle to it, is not being fit or being disregarded, or being a sort of how would I say, not regarded as not suitable enough, say, by politicians. Because, for instance, in my country, politics is everything. If you are in the right political party, you have a winning combination. So, creative or not, you will have a job. You will be treated like a creative person. Creativity has obstacles in politics, and as I was saying, in mediocre people, very highly placed in the companies. As an author of many creative products, I have personal experience that on the top of most of the companies are people that are least creative at all. How do they get there, you wonder, as I wondered? Because it's not anymore capitalism, it's something else. It is financialized society. It has nothing to do much with the usual notion of capitalism, where you had huge companies like Bata, like the one, many of them, not to quote wrongly, who were enlightened capitalists, supporting creativity and supporting the rights of working people. Now you have just blah blah, you have just words, and you have this incessant insistence of liberties, on human rights, on creativity, and all sorts of things, just suggesting the lack of them. So I believe that you have done right inviting museums to help the transfer of creativity to companies, but I think the system doesn't work. The system is blocked, and it will not help in this process. I hope you understand what I'm saying when I'm saying it's a different capitalist world. It's financializing of the planet. It means different attitude towards the product. You see, to classical capitalist of, say, early 20th century, the need of the customer was what was leading the creativity. Today, the owners of the companies are not those capitalists that would long for creativity to amount to profit, but the bankers, the huge corporations which have no connection whatsoever with the customers or with the product or with the needs of people. I can see that everywhere. Museums are a good partner for the big business because they are still not spoiled that much as this financialized world. Because, believe it or not, we will have to get back to certain basic values of honesty, of knowledge as wisdom, of courage, of simple qualities that we actually cherish so much in the tradition stored in our museums. What is the best source of Russian creativity? It's Russian identity. There's no other source. It's not an Americanized or Westernized society, or like in my country where for decades, you know, creativity is expected from the West, or differently, you are expected to imitate the West to be creative. So why are museums good interlocutor in this dialogue? Because museums at their best, and there are not many good museums, when they are best, they understand exactly what I'm talking about. They know what this quality inheritance is, and that they are there to continue it, to make it present in your everyday life, because Russia is the best when it's Russia. When it's a perfect destination for its own citizens, then in tourism, it's perfect destination for good tourists as well. It's like in museums. Many times museums would make an enormous effort to be attractive to outside visitors, to the foreigners, and they sometimes exaggerate. Very often they do. Be the best possible to your own users, to your own community, and then a knowledgeable, good, well-intentioned visitor from the West, from outside, will absolutely appreciate it and will recognize the quality. And this is why museums are a good part of this dialogue. There's this Zen story, which is very long, but I will cut it very short. A master bowman in Zen hits the target, and the disciple asks, "How can you hit always the very, very center of the target?" He says, "I am the target, you see. I'm identified with the target. Target and I are the same. If you are the same with your visitor, with your user, you cannot miss. But you have to have the ability, the knowledge, inclination, honesty, and wisdom, finally, to understand exactly what your user needs, what the people around your museum need, what is community longing for. There you deliver your product. There you are creative because you have the right attitude. It's the mindset. What we are told basically today is that creativity can be learned. It cannot. You're either born with the inclination and possibility, with this potential, and schools can help you always to make it better, to make it quicker, but they cannot implant creativity in you, because it doesn't happen that way. Academies don't function like that. Faculties neither. So if you have silver bells in your head. I'm, as a professor, there to steer them up. If you don't have them, I will not teach you the tricks, how to pretend to be knowledgeable or wise even. So I'm always ready to talk to you about the difference between marketing and marketeering, because one is product for the market that you really deliver to somebody that you know and respect, and the other is making profit. That's it. That is why it's called marketeering. Just, you know, putting it there because you need more profit, and this is dominating ideology today in the world. So you won't be wrong. Many will actually find you very attractive by your attitude, but it's not the one that will take you into the future. Your future needs to be yours. Your creativity needs to be yours, and you can learn from. If we talk about museums, for the huge reservoir of experience of Russian people, I will say, or peoples, because there you might like, or you might be able to discern what is the quality, what were the qualities that actually deserve continuation, and when you discover them and give them the shape and all that is needed today, when you adjust them to the present, then you are creative. It's not outside. It's not outside from your own identity. Have I accomplished nearly 10 or 15 minutes? I wouldn't like to be too long. And I will not leave you, so I will stay for any other further comments. And by the way, I'm not talking about museology for the last 40 years, because there is no science about institutions. The science about concept, and the concept is heritage. Concept is our patrimony. So it's some certain science about heritage, about public memory, certainly not about museums. About museums, we write handbooks, and it's good to have them even upon creativity, because creativity has certain how would I say, regularities, but it can be taught, cannot be taught. So sorry, I wouldn't like to risk to be too long. Stop here. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Томислав.
Thank you so much, Tomislav. So when we started this project, we have developed a certain model, and with the help of which we are going to research the process of creativity. And now, in your speech, you have mentioned a very important aspect. One of the aspects that we also implement in our model. We have such a model and such a page in this model as inhibitors of creativity and boosters. So these creativity inhibitors that sometimes block the creative processes in some certain reasons. That is the crucial thing for us. And that is really important to deal and to overcome these obstacles to provide the certain element of creativity in the organization. And appealing to heritage and those values that we cherish during the last centuries. That is also the same, and the interesting thought is that creativity can be focused not in the future, but can also be focused in the past. And some people really ignore such a thing, but yeah, that is really productive. So thank you so much for such interesting ideas and insights. And we are going to continue our discussion. And we welcome Bjorn Stenbergs. So Mr. Stenbergs is one of our key speakers today. Vladimir said to me that I'm going to remind for you all the main thing that united us today. We are a group of experts that are based in Higher School of Economics, and we deal with research of creativity in cultural institutions in order to research creativity and creative processes to develop these processes and implement them in practice of entrepreneurship and business sphere. And the second sphere of our research is that good theaters and proper museums implement creativity in the pure sense of this term. And we are going to collect some certain insights and productive things and thoughts and collect them and to unite in a particular document. Thus, we are going to fix and to be inspired by some ideas of our speakers today and of some certain practices that are implemented on the way in the museums worldwide. So, Mr. Bjorn Stenbergs is a professor of Amsterdam and a board member of ICOM NPR. So we are giving floor to you. You're welcome to share your opinion on the topic.
Секундочку. Дорогие коллеги, спасибо большое. Приятно знакомиться for all the other people. I hope you're all healthy and doing well. And let's hope all these situations will be gone. I can't say soon, but let's hope they will be gone someday. Ну да. Спасибо большое, translator. Because I was listening to the Russian talks, I missed half the translation, but yeah, очень люблю русский язык, so I wanted to hear you guys talk. So it means that I didn't catch all the translation so well. Спасибо большое for inviting also. Nota. I will talk a little bit about this, and actually I'm very happy to see Tomislav and that you're also in good health. And the same is for Olechka and Irina, Sergey, and all the other colleagues. What for me is important is actually almost the same story as what Tomislav is saying. My last research and also thesis at Shanika at Higgs was about that the ethics and the society, the value of society can be implemented in a business model. It's possible. And the only thing is, it's not very popular because it costs money. But in the end, long term, it doesn't cost money. I think it's important to say that you have things which are called economics, and there are things which have to do with life, life as such. Along the way, we invented economy to survive, but economics is there to support life. And in this way, a business should support the values of society. I think if I look at Russia, and this is also one of the reasons why I love Russia so much. It's a country where I see that the values are still one of the highest, although sometimes you see that business is there as well. But every Russian loves their values. If it's a rich person or not a rich person, they love the Russian values. They love nature, they love literature, they love food, they love drinks. And besides all these platonic things, they love philosophy, they like to talk about life, they like to enjoy life, and they have a sustainable thought on how their country should be maintained. Is this what we see in the countries outside of Russia? Is this what you see in the media? That's maybe a different thing, but if you look at the individual Russian, I think this is also why people who have too much money still want to go back to Russia, although they are not allowed anymore. But let's go back to business. A commercial company is for one reason only there, is for survive and for making money. That's the only two goals they have. And most of the time, they have to make money for anonymous stakeholders. If you do sales, which ultimately, of course, brings in the income, it means that in order to do sales, that's called business. If we want to do business, that's called upon branding. It's called about knowing, and branding and knowing and marketing as such, and sales has to do with trust. If there is no trust, there is no business. If we don't trust that the computer works, it doesn't work. We don't buy the computer. You don't buy the product. If you don't trust the vaccine, you don't take the vaccine. Many countries have this example. If you have trust, that means you have a value. The value of the company, but also it needs to match with the value of the customer. And that means that the business needs to match with the contribution to the society, which is interesting. This is based upon an individual museum making a deal with a business. If you look at a sector, why should a sector as a museum sector, a cultural sector, why should it be interesting for a business? Well, people who know me already know that I like to make these global deals with Lego, with Playmobil, with I don't know which companies, on behalf of many museums. That's based upon values. Lego is about plastic, which is oil. Plastic is not fantastic. So nobody wants to do a business deal when you have values. You don't want to do a business deal with plastic. But if you make a deal on behalf of museums with Lego, so that Hermitage, the Louvre is made out of Lego and all the children can buy it, then you first of all make yourself known to an audience, which is your customer. And at the same time, you can also bring your values into this company, and hopefully someday they will listen to what you have to say. Besides making business on sector level, and the same is also a sector within a country. Many of you know that I'm busy with your supermarket Lenta in Russia. And Lenta is, I think, number 3 or maybe even number 2 now on supermarkets in Russia. Every week they still open a new supermarket somewhere in Russia. They have more than 50,000 employees. It's about the business. Move on. Lenta has customers. Skolka people have a Troika card in Moscow? Tak, 20 million. How many people have a museum card in Russia? Not the ICOM card, but a museum card. It doesn't exist in Russia yet. The biggest museum card in the world which is not ICOM, I mean, but another card on country level, is Finland or the Netherlands, which is about 1 million, the biggest. If you work together with Troika, you have 20 million people who have access to your museums, which is trying to match the value of a commercial company with a value of society. And try to, and it's not about sales sometimes, it's just about sharing the values and have access to the values. If you want to make a deal with Lenta, it's not only in Moscow, Lenta is for whole Russia. And then I think they're now at 27 million members. And if you already look now, if you have a member card of Lenta and you look online, you can already see that they offer weekends to museums in St. Petersburg, etc. But what is interesting is that also products in the supermarket can be matched with the values of some of the museums. There are Moloko museums, you have Moloko in Lenta, etc. So those are very practical, but in the end, very strategical on business level, business model level, things which could match to each other. If I then look at the creativity of the cultural sector, which is known as the most creative sector of all the sectors, because all the creative people should be in the creative sector, in the cultural sector. If we would combine all this creativity and we put it for marketing purposes or for business purposes, that is definitely something what a business could use. Besides this, the museum sector, I think in Russia only 75,000 people are employed in museums. When I was working at UNESCO in Paris, we made an estimate how many people globally are visiting museums per year. It's more than 1 billion. What is interesting for a commercial company is to have access to potential customers. Well, we have them. Do we want to share them with them? No, not yet. Step by step. And we also, only 20, 30 years, we are figuring out how we as a cultural sector can be commercial also, how we can think in a business way. So we also need to give us time ourselves. If I look at the forecast of MIT, if I look at the forecast of Deloitte, if I look at the forecast on McKinsey reports, those are the three I work together with globally. They forecast that specific sectors are going to take priority, that they are going to take a focus which we didn't look at before. And they are more capable of doing things than before. And I will give you an example for this. And it means consequences for other sectors. And I will give you just one last example, and then I will try to close for now. One of the things which could give us as a museum sector in a creative way an influence in business is to become part of the business. And what I see, what I'm doing now in Europe, and hopefully when the borders are open and I can fly to Russia again, I will do it in Russia too. You know the concept of a startup. Sometimes you have this company and people start this company. It's a startup. And a startup has stakeholders, owners. And suppose there are more than 2 owners. Suppose Vladimir, suppose you and I are the owner of one startup. That means that I have 50% of the company and you have 50%. But if we want to be active in a sector, which, let's say the museum sector, and we have a company on websites, then maybe we want to make ourselves known to the customer, to the potential customer. If I give 5% of all my stocks, all my shares, and you also, then we have 10% of the shares. And we give this as a bonus, as a present to Tretyakov Gallery or to the ICOM Museum in Moscow as a present. But all these shares, they have no vote because only Vladimir and I can vote on our own company. But you get the shares. And of course, Vladimir and I don't want to have this company forever. In 3 years' time, we want to sell it and we make profit. And what is interesting is that also the ICOM Museum gets all this money when we sell our company. So they don't have to do anything. We give a present, but during the time that Vladimir and I are doing our business, we sometimes want to say that, you know, we are a partner of the ICOM Museum and that we do good things. And maybe sometimes we want to have our reception there and we will pay for it because we are a commercial company. Museum does not have any money. I will give you the success example. Lockdown is almost 2 years now. In the last 2 years, we have, with our foundation, already more than 400,000 shares, which is a value when they sell for more than 5 million euros. And already they are going to be sold now. It's a new way of fundraising. And this is coming from the creative sector, as we are. We are the most creative sector. So we will find all kinds of new ways not to ask the government just for money. No, we will do it ourselves, patom, not step by step. Now we need the government still to support us, but step by step, we will become stronger after this. And being as an ICOM museum, just an example, but the ICOM museum being part of the company of Vladimir and me, they also give the values of the ICOM museum to us, to our company. Maybe Vladimir and I, when we do business, we are not allowed by the ICOM museum to do business on Sunday because it's the ICOM museum. We need to think about Sunday, which is okay. So the values of society can go into business. So in short, creativity, business, culture and business, we can match each other's goals as long as we are in the lead, because we are the most creative sector. And I think that is one of our big added values.
Thank you very much, Bjorn. Thank you, Bjorn. Thank you.
Пожалуйста.
Честно говоря, это именно такая традиционная точка зрения на взаимодействие музеев и...
So thank you so much. Yeah, but actually it is a little bit of a traditional point of view, and I would like to give the floor to Natalia Samolenko, who is Deputy Director General of the Russian State Library, and she has a bunch of questions based on your speech. Yes, I would like to say that I really respond and understand everything that my dear colleagues are saying right now. And thus, I really understand what I have already learned working in the business structure and in the company. But actually, we're here today not to transfer the business experience to the museums field, despite it is really important thing. Yeah, but we decided to cover a more important and difficult topic of what is really essential for business to transfer from museum sphere, as it's also an interesting point. And I would like to define the difference between creative practices and creativity. And actually, both of these terms are closely related with self-expression, with things for being unique. And while the creativity as a term is connected with the creation in the certain framework. And I think for those who work in the museum field, it is a clear situation, because we as professionals are really different from artists and some other specialists that create some certain pieces of art. And this thing is also relevant to a business field. When we consider a business topic, we should understand that we should do no harm to the object, and we can understand it in a wide term as our attitude to life. And as for us, as for museum specialists and museology specialists, it is really important to consider historical truth and the authenticity of our objects. But that is a new model that is used from the people from, I would say, a different word. And I would also mention that working for a huge company or maybe a small company with some repetitive actions, that is a world that provokes some crisis situations in the people's life. And such organizations as museums and theaters play a really significant role in restoring of creativity of people. And it relates to some levels of culture. We can mention mass culture and so-called high culture that can be met and understood and felt in theaters and in museums. But when we consider those people who are responsible for decision making and who create and develop some projects on the highest level, in this situation, creativity can be a really blocking factor, because it is a different story, and the task that should be solved is to understand such things that were created before the person's life and understand all the processes that can be changeable and can change your life. And I think it is really important to transfer such practice into the business field. And I think that modern museums provide some different practices, starting from excursions when a person is guided through the museum and he or she is demonstrated some certain exhibits. And sometimes there are some different practices and experiences that are really fragile and interesting and unique, that are realized during some certain huge museum projects. And I think that this topic is a huge one and a huge food for thought for all of us to understand what is really important in modern life and in our society. Olga, I would like to ask you to provide a certain example of such appealing of so-called high culture through these creative actions. Okay, let's consider such projects that we have in Moscow right now. One of such projects that is hugely discussed in our society is Mikhail Vrubel's exhibition. That is a prominent example when mass public and mass culture that is really common and known from the early childhood for everybody who was grown up in the Soviet Union is brought to the public. And the exhibition is really well planned, and it provides a huge opportunity to understand and to find out about Mikhail Vrubel's art and his life. Thus, the reaction about this exhibition is really amazing. And I think it is considerable to understand that real different people attend this exhibition. And we have a huge feedback. And this exhibition attracted a lot of museum professionals from different institutions. And yeah, you know that Mikhail Vrubil is hugely connected with so-called demons images because he had huge and very difficult psychological problems. But it's really interesting to trace the reaction of the youngsters who sometimes meet Vrubil's art for the first time in their lives. And they consider him to be an artist of a really really creative person that doesn't belong to Earth at all. He is such an interesting image for them that they do not connect them to an Earth personality. Yeah, that is an interesting notion, and I'm really glad that the reaction is like that. And such a huge interest to the unknown facts of Vrubil's life and art, and the possibility to find out something new in the commonly known artist is a magnificent example. Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that is a huge example of hope, if I may say so, that we have a chance for a future positive changes in our life, that the future should be better than we can consider. And we have also some chances to transfer some ideas of high culture through the mass culture as well. But because sometimes mass culture is a winner in this battle, if we can consider the situation like that. So thank you so much. And I'm going to provide the possibility to speak up to Stefan Simon. He is a representative of Yale University. And Mr. Simon is going to talk about museum creativity and his own experience in this field, and how creativity can be implemented in business sphere. So you're welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you. And I can just join, everybody who spoke before me. Happy to see you healthy and wishing you to remain healthy. And, we are living in a crisis. And I think that fits well to what I was supposed to say about museums, because I think museums are also living in a crisis now. And I would like to point out why that is the case. First of all, when I saw the invitation about creativity, I thought this has nothing to do with me. I'm a scientist, I work on challenges of climate change and diversity in museums, and who owns culture and illicit traffic. And then I realized, well, it somehow comes from Vladimir Opredlenyov, and I know him very well. He is a great, voice in how to make museums modern with the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. And I said, well, I should probably look at this a little bit deeper, because if Vladimir speaks about creativity in business, there's some sense in it, which I don't see yet, because as a chemist, I don't really know what this can be about. So I followed the invitation with the idea to learn something, and I already have to say thank you to everybody. Everybody's speaking up here, because I learned a lot listening carefully to what Tomislav was saying, what Björn was saying, what Olga was saying, and it maybe brings my ideas a little bit into context. So the first idea which I had about creativity is, in Germany, when you want to hire a scientist in a museum laboratory, actually one of the things which is very specific in determining the salary of this person to be employed is actually creativity. A scientist has to be creative. A scientist has to develop theories, hypotheses, maybe method development, maybe inventions at the end of the day. So I have never thought about this. I worked as a scientist for 30 years. I have never thought that creativity has anything to do with what I'm doing, but looking in my task description and the task description of the scientists in the museum, I see that all of a sudden creativity is important. Then I went further and I looked up, the model of this Hungarian philosopher, which I apologize that I cannot really pronounce his name probably. It's very difficult to pronounce for German. Csikszentmihalyi, probably, I don't know. I went into that and I said, well, this is really interesting. And I kind of slowly started to understand what makes this issue so interesting for Vladimir. Because as I said before, whenever I look at something he's doing, I think he's like 10 years ahead of what we're doing here in Germany. And it's always very inspiring to listen to his ideas and to see actually what kind of things they do at the Pushkin Museum, with this wonderful exhibition, for example, the war, the pictures from the war, the Great War, and to set up together the objects with the ancient black and white photography. I really like this exhibition a lot. So I looked at this a little bit further, and it came to my mind what Tomislav said in his introduction, that he feels embarrassed that we're leaving a world worse behind than we got them from our parents. And this is probably the main topic of my research: the challenges of climate change, the challenges of the Green Museum, how to make museums sustainable, how to actually, I was asked a few weeks ago, why do I oppose new buildings of museums in Germany and climatization HVAC systems? And I said, well, we may not need museums in 50 years of time, because we will not have civilizations. There will be nobody to come to a museum. If we do not meet the average increase of temperature of 2 degrees Celsius, actually they're talking about 1.5, which we have now, as of today, not even 7 years for the carbon dioxide budget on the world, right, to meet this aim. But if we talk about 2 degrees temperature increase, we know that this will come together with a global catastrophe, with not only rising seawater levels, but wildfires, severe weather events, migration, war and conflict, and probably the end of civilizations as we know them today. So it's not really a good topic to talk about the future of museums when you do not talk about climate change. On the other hand, in Germany, we have 6,800 museums. We have, the Corona crisis, of course, made a big impact, but before Corona crisis, we had approximately 114 million visitors to the German museums. That is more than 10 times as many as people are visiting our Bundesliga games. For those interested in football, this is very popular, right? Everybody knows Bayern Munich. Actually, I'm a member of Bayern Munich, so I'm a proud member of Bayern Munich, and I watch football. Everybody thinks football is important, but museums are way more important. They are visited by 10 times more people than the soccer or the football stadiums. And this is, I think, what Björn was talking about, the impact and the leverage which cultural heritage actually can have and actually should have, because museums are, at least in our sphere, I would say in the global north, it doesn't matter, Russia, America, Germany, museums are institutions of high trust. Societies believe museums. When you meet a curator who is investigating medieval vessels for 20, 30 years, you believe what she or he is saying, because she did that with all her heart and all his passion for like decades. Museums are institutions of high trust. And this is why I'm saying now we are in the crisis. We're in the crisis because of the climate change, but we're also in a crisis because of transparency and ownership of the museums. Look at what happens with the contested heritage between the global south and the global north. Look at what happens in the discussion now with the Benin bronzes around the world, between Germany, France, United States. What happens there? Where do we deal with our cultural heritage? What is the future of it? Does it belong to us? Will people come to the museums? And I think in this debate, creativity has an important role, because if we think about transparency and participation as the pillars of sustainability and the pillars of keeping museums relevant, I think this is the challenge, right? Will museums be relevant in 50 years? I said maybe not, because it will be 48 degrees Celsius and we will not be able to walk in our cities anymore. But maybe also not, because we have not included the other voices and the other perspectives of those people who actually own the heritage in our museums. And I think these are two fields where we have to have a lot of creativity. And maybe last comparison, if you look at Instagram, and I belong to the older generation, and so I don't really know what I'm talking about when I refer to Instagram, but as an artist like Ariana Grande, whom I also don't know, but my children tell me that she's like a great star. I looked her up on Instagram. She has 283 million followers on Instagram. 283 million. And then I go back to my proud National Museum of Germany. We have 65,000 followers. What is that? Why? I mean, why somebody who maybe can sing very nicely? Okay, I admit probably maybe the most beautiful voice on this planet, but why she has 283 million followers in our museums? I don't know about the Pushkin, the Tretyakov, the famous museum, the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, but how many followers do they have? So what is it what we can do better? And I think there are definitely, the connection between creativity and business, as you address them in your research program at the University of Higher Technologies, I think they are very well placed. And I can only say I'm curious to learn more about that. And so far, I thank you very much for your patience in bearing with me as a simple heritage scientist and with no roots in business and no roots in creativity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stevan. Dear colleagues, this offered to go through a quick questionnaire with our speakers regarding the questions which we have in the research model. And please answer briefly. We'll maybe last for 1 minute, we'll ask questions, and that is why we'll do it in the same sequence as we made the presentation. And please, dear colleagues who have joined us via Zoom from the research laboratory, we are also ready to encourage you to make comments. The first question is the following. Dear colleagues, what is the main stimulus for creativity for you personally? What inspires you? What encourages you to create something new? Professor Tomislav.
Звук, нужно включить звук. Sound.
Please turn on the sound. Professor Tomislav, please turn on the mic.
Yes, I'm trying. Yes. Yes. Yeah, okay. You are asking a very frustrated person because I regard myself as a creative person. And if you go to my website, you will see why do I claim so. On the other hand, this makes me quite sensitive to all your questions and remarks, because I've been trying very hard to see if some things are possible. You're proposing certain projects to different colleagues, different institutions, businesses, and so on. And believe me, even if you are stupid or if your proposals are not very creative, you learn about how it works, how the systems work, how people resonate, and what is going on, because you don't learn about the world if you don't try to change it. Somebody else said, I agree. So trying to change the world, and therefore I'm learning. This is why I'm so positive about certain things, or should I say rather inflexible Simon was claiming something which is very dear to me, and it's a huge value. Museums are institutions of high trust in society. Do you think they will stay that way? Sorry? Do you still think they stay that way?
Прошу прощения.
Sorry, Tomislav. Maybe I have formulated the question improperly because we would like to listen to your personal opinion. No, I'm not interested in your opinion about museums and the whole world. What helps you to create something new? What helps you personally to create something new in your personal creative processes? Maybe you'll give us a simple personal answer, maybe intimate answer. And that is why we will reveal this topic on the global level. And it will move from the global level to the individual level. Would like to help you, Tomislav. Let me also say a few words about myself.
If I understand you correctly, you would like a simple personal experience, correct?
Да.
Yes. My simple experiences are many, and that is institutions of high trust museums will have difficulties to remain high trust because they're expected to be less non-profit than before. And there's an assault, almost quite an aggressive one, from the so-called business world. I said I have my reservations towards this sort of capitalism because it's actually imposing certain monetization of culture, seeing culture as assets, which is only natural in this kind of approach. But I'm warning you because my experience tells me that profit and culture can probably coexist, but culture is easily at loss. And it may be rather grim prospect for the future. That's my experience from many projects. On the other hand, I think museums are formidable reservoir of creativity if they take it seriously about this collective transfer of experience, which is unique, there, Russian, local, regional, or whatever. And my experiences are all converging into this. And it's a very dangerous situation because culture is now more feeble and more fragile than before. I can elaborate that later if necessary. It's commodification of the world, if you wish. Sorry. Thank you.
Спасибо, Tomislav. Тогда мы...
Thank you, Tomislav. We've planned ahead lots of questions, and dear colleagues, let me give the floor to Sergei Rostislavovich while answering this question. What is your personal experience and your personal feeling? What is your personal main stimulus for creativity? Yurina has pronounced what?
Oh, just I'm still the one. Okay. I think I said it already. I'm not happy with the world as it is. I'd like to make it better. And I think it's as simple as anybody has it. A good business person would say the same. Good business is making the world better. It's not always about profit. It can be joy. And somebody has mentioned before, the more we are, how would I say, the more we approach life, and the values of life and living, the better we are, be it in business or in culture. And I think creative people are those who enjoy the world because they understand it and they think they know what is forgotten and should be revived, should be brought back, and what can be brought in seemingly new and yet probably relying on former experiences. Goethe was saying, there are no new things. There are things that we rediscover. And this is it. We are living a continuous human adventure, a long experience, very specific, very rich. And this, if you regard it with understanding and wisdom, you will find a well of creative ideas of everything. This is what makes me always creative, because I...
Спасибо большое.
Thank
Передам.
you very much. And I'll give the floor to the next speaker, but we got the key, so we grasped the key idea.
So I would like to ask the same question and address Mr. Sergey Filonovich. Okay, so I will tell you the following. Ms. Samolenko has mentioned an interesting notion of the common business that is boring. So thus creativity for me is the lack of boredom, and to make everything differently, and to create something that wasn't created before you, and understand something new. That is the essential thing for me. And trying to escape from boredom is the main factor for me. That is it. Thank you so much, Sergey, and we will be glad to hear to your answer, to listen to your answers. So you're muted now, gentlemen. You're welcome to answer.
I thought it was Sergey. To me.
For you.
Hey, doing it. Sorry, I was just listening. You know, Russian music sounds so poetic. I love it. Спасибо большое. Вопрос. Well, what personally, for me personally, I think one is during this period, I need to stay, not only for myself, but also for all the other people, I need to stay positive. This is already a day job for everybody, not only for me. But for leaders, it's a very important thing. Many of you are leaders in your own field. Could be scientific departments which you lead, could be that you write books which are ambassadors to knowledge to other people, etc. So we need to stay and we need to breathe positiveness. Besides this, I'm also trying in all kind of creative ways to get into Russia, because I need to support so many of my project colleagues. And I'm being very creative. Marrying is one of the options. Learning to speak better and write better Russian. I'm already in a course number 3 at the university, because I want to speak better Russian. So, пожалуйста, потом, Vladimir, I will speak very good Russian. At least I can слышу good. But to help more, I need to stay in contact. If you cannot reach everybody physically, because you cannot go to a conference, you cannot say hi, you cannot speak to people in the audience and to sort of feel how, you know, Stefan and Tomislav, you also are professors, you know how this is if you stand in front of a lecture hall with 200 or 600 students. That's different. You can feel the atmosphere. You can change, you can make a joke, digitally different. But to help more, you need to stay in contact. And this is, again, a day job, because now you need to personally send messages to people. You need to personally have a video chat. My God, it's so much time, which is fine, because the connection gets more personal. So it's okay, you know, much more friendships come out of this. And I will also tell you, much more creativity comes out of this, because you have time to listen to people now, where you normally are on a reception and chat, and now you have time for each other. So listening is a very important thing during this pandemic. Connecting people, which I did not so much maybe before, I'm doing now so much. Combine people. I give you an example. You know, many musicians are unemployed at this moment because they cannot perform, which is crazy. But musicians, they know how to read music, and it's the same language globally. What is interesting is that they can work globally, just if they can use this language. But musicians are mathematics, because music is a mathematic thing. I use mathematics and all these people now, so I use musicians to solve stuff because I can use their brain in a different way. So you need to be creative in combining different things than before. Helping digitally is not great, but at least you can try to do this always. And in all kind of creative ways, I try this. Unfortunately and fortunately, I teach much more than before because all students, they want to study more. They want to have more courses. Yeah, that's where my evenings go to. So if you ask me personally, I really enjoy this period because I can do more, but I definitely would love to be physically in Russia and to do more physically. And that's my creative thoughts are only about how to get into Russia.
Спасибо большое, Бjörn.
Thank you so much, Björn. Stefan, you are welcome to answer the following question. What is the main stimulus for creativity for you personally?
Yeah, well, I had the opportunity. It's very good that I can always listen to what my colleagues are saying, and then I can put my own experience into the relation. I would say I can share and I can feel with the importance of connectivity, of connections. I think that's definitely very true. Maybe I would like to start by saying what is not a stimulus for creativity. As somebody who worked at some of the richest universities, right, at the Yale University in Connecticut, at the Getty Conservation Institute in California, I would say what is not a stimulus are funding and money. In the opposite, a stimulus actually is a lack of funding and a lack of money, and a problem actually is a stimulus. And Vladimir will remember from the last summer, I think we had a meeting over ICOM Russia as well, and we were discussing how museums went through this crisis, the first months, of lockdown and the first months of the pandemic. And I said, well, there was a time where we had no disinfectants. There was nothing in this country, no alcohol, nothing, and you couldn't buy it. And we find out that we are a chemistry lab, so we can actually distill alcohol and we can actually make our own alcohol out of nothing. And so we produced 1,000 liters of disinfectant for the National Museum, the National Library, and whole Berlin was smelling as if they were drinking, in the worst pub over the whole night. And I said to my director general, I'm sorry, this is not Chanel 5, I'm not doing I just make disinfectants, 78–80% of alcohol, and it will work against this terrible virus. So the stimulus was actually the problem. What I would like to add is you need a problem, you need maybe even more the lack of funding than the big, amount of money, but you need a little bit of freedom, and you need a little place where you can just walk without not being blocked and close the doors and windows immediately. You need that. And maybe the crisis actually was something like that. At least I can say for my institution, which is a very bureaucratic German, institution, the crisis put everything upside down. And I think in a normal time, I would have never gotten permission to produce 1,000 liters of alcohol in my lab. I would have never managed that, but it was not a really normal time, and we could go and we could do it. And looking back, I think that was the main stimulus. I mean, just as an example, not the superfluous of money, but the lack of money, and then a little bit of way to go and not being blocked by the supervisors immediately.
Спасибо большое, Стефан.
Thank you so much, Stefan. So, Natalia, we would like to listen to your recipe. Okay, so once again, I will draw to my personal experience and my business experience. The main factor and main stimulus for creativity was the overcoming some problems and obstacles. When I started to work in the museum field, and started learning curatorship, then, despite solving some difficult problems, you have to have a wish to attract some attention to a project that you are developing, and that is interesting to me personally as a specialist. And the project that I would like to be understandable and clear for the huge amount of people, for the audience as a whole. Thus, despite all the challenges, I have a huge stimulus for discovering something new and for sharing for the audience. So thank you, Natalia. Thank you so much. And I would like to ask the same question to my colleagues from the research laboratory. Valeria, you are welcome to share your experience with us. You know, I have a really short answer. Today is the day when we celebrate the shortest day in the year. And for the century, that is a very creative and perspective day for starting some new events and activities. And that is why I'm really happy to share my thoughts with you and to listen to something new and to unite with people that are ready to develop some new ideas together with you. So that is, I'm so happy and I really cherish such a possibility for this particular day. Thank you so much, Valeria. So, Sergey, you're welcome. Yes, dear colleagues. So the question is really interesting, but I'm afraid that I will be the only one because I am so spoiled. I have been researching creativity as an object for more than 20 years. And sometimes I really note some actions in my activities as can be defined as creative ones. But actually, that is the main research field for me. And sometimes I really note that they are really combined and mixed in my life, and it provides some side effects and some resonance, as I say so, because I really know what I'm doing, and sometimes I really have no clue what about I'm doing, and everything is mixed up. And I have a rational and emotional things together. Everything is combined and mixed. Yes, so please share some intuitive things with us, please. Well, actually, I have no stimulus for creativity, but sometimes I really can do so. But I can say that it is a really prominent stimulus that I use for creativity. But when I have a huge problem, for example, I have no money, or I would like to drink some alcohol, but I don't have such an opportunity, I will find a solution, and it may be a really creative one, but that is some particular situation. When you're walking in the forest and you have a really huge insight, but it isn't a rule, and I don't have any set of rules and activities that provide and boost my creativity. Okay, Irina, what about you? So, to say short, a really huge stimulus is that the activity should be interesting really for me personally, and it should be also relevant for the society as a whole. And actually, the real thing about my work for Panasonic, and I have been working there for the 13 years already, is that is really challenging and interesting for me. And the mutual intention is also important, because the founder of our company provides the cherishable idea that our activities should be really relevant and important for the society as well. And as Sergey has mentioned, I can create some things from different sources without any recipe. So thank you so much. Dear colleagues, the second question from our huge model.
То есть вот если вы сами создаете...
What structure do you have for your creativity process? When you create something, and that is a challenge for our translator to define and to specify the terms of creativity and creative activities. What are the main factors and main points of the process of creation something new? So let's start with Bjorn. Bjorn, you're welcome.
Can you repeat the question one more time, because my connection was bad?
Как вы структурируете во времени творческий процесс?
How do you develop the creative process, and how your personal creative process is connected with some creative practices?
No, no. Okay. Then well, one of the things is that sometimes, especially during this pandemic, it's hard to travel. And in many ways, a message needs to come to the people. And maybe my message or my knowledge is not so important, but sometimes you represent with the story the knowledge behind it. So I tried to, and actually it was this year, I tried to really think how to get my knowledge more to the people who need it, or the knowledge I represent, and also to the right people. So I tried with my team to creatively think how to get there at best. One of the reasons is in the countries where we are operating, also in Asia, the postal service doesn't work. But many little companies are still active during lockdown even. So what we did is we produced 5 children books in which we tried to explain how we have different topics, but all kind of things we tried to explain. How museums work, that was one book. Another book was how to treat your eyes as a child, very good. So we did for many schools, we did these kind of programs. And you also know that in many countries, also in Russia, by the way, schools were shut down. So it's hard for parents, you know, because you're stuck with those kids. It's hard for schools because they need to teach in a different way. And it's hard for the kids, of course, because they have no fun, they don't meet each other, they cannot develop their social skills and other group educational things. So also this is one of the books, how to develop to make friends. Actually, that was one of the books, how to make friends. And we printed those books. We asked one of those big funds in the world, one is called USAID, and we asked them to pay for these books. And we already distributed, I think, 10,000 books to Vietnamese kids now who had to be at home. First of all, my creativity had to go into the books. Then the creativity had to go in what kind of story. So we needed to invent a story. How to get those books there. We couldn't distribute it, so we needed to locally print them and distribute it from there. But also there it was a challenge. So many challenges in the creativity in this process were there. But we wanted to find a way how to get to the kids. Now we are doing this in Cambodia, Laos, Tanzania in Africa, and I already asked Olga how to translate it into Russian. So we are trying to overcome this period of time. People don't need to pay. I will try to find the money somewhere. People don't need to do anything, just help to distribute. And they need to tell us what they need. So we need to listen and they need to tell. And sometimes looking at Stefan and Thomas Love, And sometimes we also need to look at, because when the topics are becoming more serious, we need academic noting. So we need sometimes colleagues to back up stories and do some research for us, so that at least we try to tell the utmost truth, although it's always in science temporary until the other one finds a better place. But yeah, so this is what we did in a creative way. And what I see, and this is also what you do now with this event, you try to combine as much people as possible to, ask your questions, put it on the table, try to find a platform and use each other's brains instead of physically. So yeah, I think it's very good how you also try to create it in a creative way to make an international event like this possible.
Bjorn, thank you very much. Stefan, how do you structure the creative processes over time? How do you manage time for creativity?
Oh my God, if I could answer that, right? I mean, that's probably where I'm really bad at. And I went through your questions about, the scale, the process, the finalizing the last detail. And it comes to my mind that a human being is existing out of flesh and bones, and you probably need the bones as much as you need the flesh, because otherwise it would be just bones or just flesh. It doesn't work. So you need everything. You need somebody who has this, motivation for the goal, right? You need somebody who is following up the process, and actually you also need somebody to finalize the last details. That's where I'm usually worst at. But I would say on the good side in museums, and I'm now speaking for Germany, but I can imagine, having visited so many magnificent museums in Russia too, it's quite similar in Russia. You have a big, what people might call the USP of museums, like the unique selling point. You have a very high intrinsic motivation of the people working there. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but I would say many people would work in a museum even without a salary, right? Maybe they would even pay for being able to work in the museum. So this is not an environment where you have to give a lot of incentives for people to become creative. This is rather an environment where you can profit from this intrinsic motivations, and that's how I deal with my laboratory. I'm waiting for ideas, and then I try to open the alleys to follow up on them. And I try to remove the obstacles, which are very often bureaucratic, because we're a public institution, to whom I'm talking here, right? Public institutions are probably, quite similar also in Russia. So there is obstacles everywhere. But there is this high intrinsic motivation of the curators, of the museum experts, of the staff. And I think that's, if in the ideal world, I would only work removing the obstacles. In the real world, of course, I make many mistakes along all this question, which Vladimir was so nicely to us, so kind to us. I can't say that I have a model answer, but I think we should take profit from the high intrinsic motivation of our colleagues in the museums.
Спасибо большое, Стефан. Tomislav,
thank you very much, Tomislav. Please, I would like to specify this question for you. We would like to understand how you managed your time while creating your great books, which are translated now, and we are ready to read these books, and we are willing to read them. We are reading them with pleasure, and it is a very important creative process. How did you manage it? How did you structure it? How did you streamline it over time? Please, just a couple of minutes. Give us a recipe of creating something novel, something new and important.
I think the question is good, but it should be probably proposed to my family. I think they have suffered that enough to be competent to answer. But to be very, very serious and useful to you, or as far as I can, you're born with a vice or not. I like to think that I'm creative, but I will tell you what makes me creative. It's the joy, the play, the process. Because I think creative process is always the same, whatever you do. Whether you're composing ingredients in a meal, if you're a chef, or you are composing colors and shapes, if you are a painter, I happen to know the process quite well, or whether you compose ideas and concepts, it's always play and it's always joy. Joy of innovation, because it's so nice to discover something. Although, as I say, there's nothing new in the world. But nevertheless, finding probably a column that you can lead, like I was doing with the conference, The Best in Heritage in Dubrovnik. Creative people don't want to finish their work, you know. They don't want to do the hard job. I was forced to go, you know, further on, because nobody ever said yes to my proposal. Like, you know, the Best in Heritage is a good conference. Just the contrary. A top authority said, "You're wrong. You're completely wrong. You don't understand museums, and this is why I did it." Actually, I wouldn't, because it's just hard work. Creative people don't like it, you know. But they like amusement. They like contacts, because you ask people, other people, you know, am I right, you know, and you consult them, and you quarrel with them. Some of them you will lose on the way, maybe, but that's the joy of it. I like writing books because it's play with ideas. I like my little projects because they get on somebody's nerves, and they get somebody happy as well. You know, and it's a social thing, I think. And back to museums, they are full of such a beautiful, formidable inspiration. Because just let me remind you, if you look at the painting, say Hieronymus Bosch, and you really take your time, you will repeat the play and the joy and the adventure of the painter. And that's the whole thing. That's his pleasure, that's your pleasure, and that's the potential, the unbelievable potential of museums. Because it's a huge collective experience stored. If you want it in the words of Robert Lessig, who wrote the famous Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, the cult book of the 70s, then you will probably remember that he was talking about metaphysics of quality. And this is exactly what museums are about, metaphysics of quality. If you are well intentioned, and if your approach is correct, you will find creativity in museums and you will come out different. And that's the whole point. When people in museums ask me, what is our product? The difference between your visitors before and after the visit. Because like in the theater, they go out and they say, my goodness, I know the world better now. I understand it, you see. That's the joy of life. Always the same thing. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Томислав.
Stanislav, thank you very much. Natalia Yurievna, what is your recipe for managing time? I believe that creativity process consists of two parts. The first part is the insight, engendering ideas. This process is bound to happen. And when it comes to epitomizing these creative ideas in real life, it is guided by the logics of a particular project. And museum projects, expositions, exhibitions, museum exhibitions are the projects which have certain time constraints, spatial constraints, or constraints of resources. And the process of creativity is moving within this framework. Hopefully, we should take advantage of this process. We should not only solve problems, we should also enjoy this process. But it's natural to the museum's life. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Valeria, what is your answer to this question?
Ну, я повторю скорее Наталью
Okay,
Юрьевну.
so I will say something that is really close to Natalia's ideas. As Aristotle has said, everything is starts with the intention. So the first stage for me is that everything starts with the intention of sharing a new idea or an insight with other people when you cannot help but share this idea with the thing. And we have such a project that is related with humanity and the human attitude. So we have a project that is related with some medical nurses. So the first of all is the thing that you want to share with other people. The second thing is where you want to express your idea and when do you want to do this. And when you have the keys with all these three stages, so what, where, and when, every time a deadline emerges, and it happens all the times. We have such an experience with Tretyakov Gallery, and I, as a specialist, helped with the project with Pavel Fedotov, and we had such a situation. So thank you so much. Sergey, you're welcome. Okay, so my creativity structure is mixed with inspiration. You cannot model and control and predict it. And when you have such a feeling, I stop doing anything else and try to concentrate on this process to express my ideas and insights. And then you have such a wonderful and pleasurable feeling, but at the same, it is a drastic feeling because you're working till 6 or 7 a.m. and you're really exhausted. But at the same time, and during this process, it is a really wonderful experience for me. And my recipe is when you have caught such a feeling of inspiration, you should be focused to express this intention fully. Of course, sometimes you have some health problem due to this approach, but that is a different topic. So, Irina, what is your recipe? You know, I work in a commercial company, and I have a schedule and I have to deal with it. But I think the idea is quite the same, but in a stricter frameworks. First of all, you are diving into all the information you need for developing your idea. When you are starting to write an article, for example, then I continue thinking on the topic after finishing my work in my spare time. And in this situation, something new emerges. And you know, that is the process that I am experiencing during 20 years of my life. And that is an amazing thing. And you know that feeling that maybe you are typing a text in an automatic mode because you are so overwhelmed with that idea that you do this almost mechanically. That is it. So, and Sergey, you're ready? Yeah, I would like to mention that Irina has already said everything that I wanted to say. I I use all the information needed, and I try to find everything related to the topic. And I try to solve the problem that is really disturbing for you at the moment. And as a result of such digesting of the idea that is in the process of revealing, and that is the beginning of the constant process of creating the idea that you can manage. But actually, the initial process of collecting the ideas and without communication with other people, and I would like to support Bjorn in this, actually, the thing is the following. When I'm starting thinking about the topic, I'm starting discussing it with other people and trying to speak up about this. But in a particular time, you will hear all the same, and in a particular moment, this repetition brings to the bringing up a new idea. And I use such moments as sounding bones, as it is called in English. And I cannot create anything without such things. Yeah, so I was really involved in that process. I was trying to imagine all this. That is so interesting. But actually, I have a feeling that when having a lot of information inside of you, yeah, that is also relevant for me. And then you have a feeling that everything is already created and was created before you, and you have no space for moving forward. And then you have to search a space for your research, and you have to specify your idea. And then that is the issue of self-discipline, I would say. When Sergey has mentioned some creative so-called insane process, that isn't my cup of tea, because I want to be in an adequate, calm situation and to feel comfortable and really calm. And that is a really essential key thing for me for finishing the creative process. Because a creative process has to lead to a particular result. And without this result, it won't be pleasurable for you. Because I have about 2 to 3 days, and I have to create a new insight during these 3 days and to have the result of this idea. That is it. Okay, dear colleagues, we have such a prolific discussion for about 2 hours, and maybe we have some difficulties that is related to translation, because we consider this topic and these notions in very different terms. And actually, in this sphere and in this space, this topic gave us a prolific, fruitful thought, and our research will be really essential and useful for the society and for the museum specialists. No, I would like to say the translation is quite good, yeah, but we have different terms and different notions. That is why we can provide some problems for understanding for each other. That is also very important thing, because we should consider the terms of translation and some certain ideas more carefully, and we should form this intention and this idea for our future events. Well, okay, I think thus we are going to continue our discussion. And I think it is for good to return to this topic in the future. We have already conducted the first pilot interview with a person that is related to creative industry. And Russians know this person really well. That is a prominent producer and a composer and a manager of different music teams. And we are going to meet with some theater directors and some museum managers and directors. And the interviews will be focused on some certain questions that we have already developed. And these questions will be related to the realization of creative processes in different museums and theaters. And we will decipher and analyze these interviews. And as a result, this research will be primarily focused on Russia, because we have such pandemic restrictions at the moment. And we want to start this research from our native country, and then we are going to expand and enhance our research to some neighboring countries. And we have already had some particular negotiations with them. And after that, after the first stage of our research in Russia, we are going to organize an international seminar, and I really hope that we will be able to invite all the participants of this discussion to this seminar, because I hope that one day we overcome this pandemic and everything will be okay. And then we will share with you with all the results that we already gathered, and then it will be more clear for everybody what we are searching for. And believe me, I have already have 3 pages with some insights and ideas that were expressed during this discussion, because they are so prolific and prominent for me, because they are so interesting for me personally. And moreover, I would like to thank you, because you have already expressed a lot of great ideas about obstacles that can be on the trace of the research, and we should be very attentive considering them, especially in the business sphere.
When it comes to pure creativity, the temporal aspect, the aspect of time really matters, but it is not that drastic and dramatic. But when it comes to business, the temporal aspect, the aspect of time is really essential. And we have to remove all the hurdles and obstacles which impede creativity in terms of organization, functioning. And the ideas which were voiced today will be extremely beneficial for us. I would like to thank all the participants. I would like to express my special gratitude to our interpreters, because they have fulfilled great work, which was really complicated, because the topic which was discussed was extraordinary. Thank you very much. And I hope that we'll see you later. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Thank you, dear ICOM Russia, for your organization. If the executive direction hadn't helped us, we wouldn't have been able to conduct our meeting. And thanks to Olga, Irina, and Anastasia, thank you very much for the first time when we help us. And the topics are really complicated, the cross-cultural aspect. And now we're finishing our broadcast, dear colleagues, and we'll be happy to see you in real time at any other roundtable. And we will touch upon the same topics face-to-face in the foreseeable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you for your kind words.